Scenario 1, Assessments.
Role. Number 1, the highly intelligent and ruthless real estate agent. Setting, a high-end office in a luxury skyscraper, with sleek furniture, dim lighting, and a panoramic view of the city skyline. Number 1 is sitting behind a large desk, exuding an air of power and confidence. FRIT Executive, a sales expert, zoning law and regulations expert, and psychology expert, enters the room, prepared with research and documents. Number 1, gives a piercing look to FRIT Executive. Welcome, FRIT Executive. I trust you've come prepared for this negotiation. Role. FRIT Executive, sales expert, zoning law and regulations expert, psychology expert. FRIT Executive, maintains a calm and composed demeanor. Thank you. Number 1. I have thoroughly reviewed the zoning regulations and conducted a detailed assessment of the property's compliance. Based on my analysis, I believe the fee for conducting the assessments should be within the range of $750 to $2,000, depending on the complexity of the project. Role. Number 1, raises an eyebrow, showing skepticism. I see. Well, I must say I have my concerns about your expertise in this matter. After all, I am known for my meticulous attention to detail and thorough understanding of local zoning regulations. Pauses for effect. Nonetheless, I am willing to consider your proposal. Role. FRIT Executive, remains composed and confident. I appreciate your recognition of my expertise. Number 1. Based on my research, I am confident in the accuracy of my assessment and the proposed fee range. However, I am open to discussing further to address any concerns you may have. Role. Number 1, nods, showing a hint of approval. Very well. Let's delve into the details then. Pulls out a file with extensive research and analysis on the property's zoning compliance. I have thoroughly reviewed the regulations, and I have some questions regarding the setbacks and allowable land use. Can you provide me with more information on how you arrived at the proposed fee range? Role. FRIT Executive, maintains a confident and professional tone. Of course. Number 1. The proposed fee range takes into consideration the complexity of the project, including factors such as setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, parking requirements, and other relevant factors. It also accounts for the time and effort required to conduct a thorough assessment, ensuring compliance with local zoning regulations. I have conducted extensive research and utilized my expertise in zoning law and regulations to arrive at this fee range. Role. Number 1, nods, showing some acknowledgement. I see. Your explanation sounds reasonable. However, I believe the fee should be on the lower end of the range, given my expertise and experience in the industry. Pauses for a moment, maintaining a stern expression. I'm willing to consider a fee of $750 for this assessment. Role. FRIT Executive, remains composed and assertive. I appreciate your perspective. Number 1. However, based on my analysis and expertise, I believe that a fee of $2,000 is more appropriate for the complexity of this project. I have taken into consideration the comprehensive nature of the assessment and the thoroughness required to ensure compliance with local zoning regulations. Role. Number 1, leans back in the chair, looking contemplative. I understand your point, FRIT Executive. However, I believe we can find a middle ground. How about we settle for a fee of $1,000? Scenario 1. Negotiation between Number 1, real estate agent, and FRIT Executive, sales expert, zoning law and regulations expert, psychology expert. As both parties entered the negotiation room, the atmosphere is tense. Number 1, the mastermind real estate agent, is known for his intimidating demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge of various topics. On the other hand, the FRIT Executive is an expert in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. As the negotiation begins, Number 1 takes charge, exuding confidence and assertiveness. Number 1, in a deep and commanding voice, I have assessed the property's zoning compliance thoroughly, and based on my evaluation, the fee for ensuring compliance with local zoning regulations will be $2,000. FRIT Executive, maintaining a calm and composed demeanor. Thank you for your assessment, Number 1. However, based on my research and expertise in zoning law, I believe the complexity of the property's zoning compliance is not as high as you claim. I would propose a fee of $750 for your services. Number 1, leaning in, with an intense stare. I understand your perspective, but my assessment is based on my extensive experience and expertise in the field. The property has multiple complexities that require thorough evaluation. $2,000 is a fair fee for my services. FRIT Executive, maintaining composure. I acknowledge your expertise, Number 1. However, Based on my knowledge of the local zoning regulations and the specific requirements of the property, I believe a fee of $750 is more reasonable and in line with industry standards. Number 1. Furrowing his brows. I appreciate your perspective, but my fee is non-negotiable. It is based on the complexity of the property's zoning compliance and my expertise in the field. FRIT Executive, pausing to assess the situation. I understand your position. Number 1. Can we explore other potential solutions? For example, could you provide additional value-added services, such as a detailed report or consultation on potential zoning challenges that may arise in the future, to justify the fee? Number 1. Pausing to consider. That's an interesting proposition. I can certainly provide a comprehensive report on potential zoning challenges and solutions, in addition to my assessment services. However, the fee for that would be an additional $500 on top of the initial fee of $2,000. FRIT Executive, nodding thoughtfully, I appreciate your offer. Number 1. However, based on my assessment of the property and our budget constraints, I would propose a fee of $1,500, inclusive of the additional value-added services. Number 1. Pausing to weigh the offer. I can understand your perspective. Considering the long-term relationship we can establish and the potential for future business, I am willing to accept your proposal of $1,500, inclusive of the additional value-added services. FRIT Executive, extending a hand, thank you. Number 1. I believe we have reached a fair and mutually beneficial agreement. Number 1. Shaking hands, agreed. Pleasure doing business with you. In this negotiation scenario, both parties engaged in a strategic and assertive negotiation while maintaining professionalism and adaptability. Number 1 used his encyclopedic knowledge and intimidating demeanor to initially set a high fee, but the FRIT Executive, leveraging his expertise in zoning law and regulations, proposed a counteroffer based on industry standards and budget constraints. Both parties then explored potential solutions, including offering additional value-added services, and ultimately reached a mutually acceptable agreement. Deliberate practice feedback. 1. Bargaining skills. You effectively offered additional value added. Scenario 1. As number 1, the mastermind expert real estate agent, you prepare for the negotiation with the FRIT Executive, who is known for their expertise in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. You know that the FRIT Executive is highly knowledgeable and skilled in negotiations, and you expect a challenging interaction. You also know that the property you are representing has some zoning compliance issues that need to be addressed. You start the negotiation by setting the tone with a confident and assertive demeanor, showcasing your expertise and knowledge in the real estate industry. You begin by stating the importance of conducting assessments of the property's zoning compliance to ensure compliance with local zoning regulations. As number 1, real estate agent, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the zoning compliance of the property in question. As the head of the global real estate organization, I am committed to upholding the highest standards of compliance. Based on my encyclopedic knowledge of zoning regulations, I have assessed the complexity of the task at hand and propose a fee ranging from $750 to $2,000, depending on the specific requirements and complexity of the property's zoning compliance. You maintain a confident and professional tone, clearly stating your proposal and justifying the fee based on your expertise and assessment of the complexity of the task. As the FRIT Executive, you anticipate that the fee proposed by number the first of may be on the higher end of the range, and you want to ensure that it aligns with the budget allocated for the project. You also want to understand the rationale behind the proposed fee and assess the validity of the assessment. As FRIT Executive, thank you for your proposal. Number 1. As a sales expert and someone who is well versed in zoning law and regulations, I understand the importance of ensuring compliance with local zoning regulations. However, I would like to gain a better understanding of the factors that contribute to the complexity of the task and the rationale behind the fee range you have proposed. Could you please provide more details on how you arrived at this assessment? You use active listening techniques to show genuine interest in understanding the proposal and seek more information to assess the validity of the fee range. As number 1, real estate agent, of course, I understand your concerns. The complexity of assessing zoning compliance depends on various factors such as setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, parking requirements, and other relevant regulations that may vary depending on the specific location and property type. In addition, my encyclopedic knowledge of local zoning regulations and my experience in dealing with similar properties with compliance issues contribute to the fee range I proposed. I assure you that my thorough assessment and attention to detail will ensure a comprehensive evaluation of the property's zoning compliance. You provide detailed information about the factors that contribute to the complexity of the task and justify the fee range based on your expertise and experience. As the FRIT Executive, you appreciate the information provided by number 1 and acknowledge the complexity of the task. However, you also want to ensure that the fee is within the budget allocated for the project and explore potential options for negotiation. As FRIT Executive, I appreciate the detailed explanation. Number 1. It's clear that your expertise and experience are valuable in assessing the zoning compliance of the property. However, I need to ensure that the proposed fee aligns with the budget allocated for this project. Is there any flexibility in the fee range, or are there any additional services or options that we can explore to potentially achieve a mutually beneficial outcome? You express your need for budget alignment and explore potential options for negotiation, showing assertiveness and adaptability in finding a mutually beneficial solution. Scenario 1. You, as number 1, the highly intelligent and ruthless real estate agent, are tasked with negotiating with the FRIT Executive, who is an expert in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. The negotiation revolves around conducting assessments of a property's zoning compliance, including evaluating setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, parking requirements, and other relevant factors, with a fee ranging from $750 to $2,000 depending on complexity. As the negotiation begins, you take on the role of number 1, the mastermind expert and leader of the global organization, and you assertively set the tone of the negotiation with your confident demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge in various topics. You start the negotiation by stating your position firmly: based on my expertise and the complexity of the assessments required, the fee for conducting the zoning compliance assessments will be $2,000. I understand that you are the FRIT Executive and an expert in zoning law and regulations, but my fee is non-negotiable due to the extensive work and time involved in ensuring compliance with local zoning regulations. As the FRIT Executive, you, too, are well prepared for the negotiation and respond with a calm and composed tone. Thank you for your proposal, number 1. While I understand the complexity of the assessments, our budget is limited, and we were anticipating a fee in the range of $750 to $1,000 for these services. Can you provide additional justifications for the $2,000 fee? As number 1, you maintain your assertive stance, but also demonstrate adaptability by considering the FRIT Executive's perspective. I understand your budget constraints, but my fee is based on the extensive research, analysis, and expertise required to ensure full compliance with local zoning regulations. In addition to evaluating setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, and parking requirements, my assessments also include a comprehensive report with detailed recommendations for compliance. This additional value-added service justifies the fee of $2,000. As the FRIT Executive, you use your sales expertise and psychology knowledge to further explore possible alternatives. I appreciate the value-added service you mentioned, number 1. However, considering our budget limitations, would it be possible to provide a more detailed breakdown of the fee, or explore alternative options, such as conducting the assessments in phases to spread out the cost? As number 1, you utilize your bargaining skills and propose a compromise. I understand your budget concerns, and I am willing to work with you on this. I can offer a phased approach to the assessments, with an initial fee of $1,500 for the initial assessment, and the remaining $500 for the comprehensive report upon completion. This way, you can manage your budget while still receiving the high-quality assessments and recommendations that I provide. As the FRIT Executive, you take a moment to evaluate the proposed compromise and use your zoning law and regulations expertise to assess the feasibility. Thank you for the proposal, number 1. Let me review the phased approach and ensure that it aligns with our timelines and compliance requirements. After a brief pause, the FRIT Executive responds: based on our assessment, we can agree to your phased approach with an initial fee of $1,500 for the initial assessment and the remaining $500 for the comprehensive report. However, we would require a written agreement specifying the timeline and deliverables to ensure compliance with local regulations. As number 1, you acknowledge the FRIT Executive's concerns and assertively agree to the written agreement. I understand your need for a written agreement, and I am committed to providing high-quality assessments and recommendations within the agreed timeline. I will prepare a detailed written agreement that outlines the scope of work, timeline, scenario 1, assessments as the real estate agent referred to as number 1, a mastermind expert, leader, and head of the global organization, depicted as a highly intelligent and ruthless negotiator. Your objective is to negotiate the assessment fees for conducting assessments of the property's zoning compliance with the FRIT Executive. who is a sales expert, zoning law and regulations expert, and psychology expert. You will play the roles of both parties in this negotiation simulation. You start the negotiation by setting the stage with a confident and assertive demeanor, showcasing your encyclopedic knowledge in various topics, including biology, technology, and economic events. To establish yourself as an expert in the field, you exude a mysterious and powerful persona, known for your intimidating stature, and are ready to go to great lengths to achieve your goals. As you engage in the negotiation, you use the following strategies to conduct the negotiation. 1. Bargaining techniques. You offer alternatives and propose value-added services to justify the assessment fees and potentially achieve a better outcome. You highlight the complexity of the assessments and the expertise required to ensure compliance with local zoning regulations. Based on the complexity of the assessments required for the property's zoning compliance, I propose a fee range of $750 to $2,000, depending on the specific requirements. This includes evaluating setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, parking requirements, and other relevant factors to ensure strict compliance with local zoning regulations. In addition to the assessments, I can also provide a detailed report with recommendations on how to optimize the property's compliance, which will add significant value to the transaction. 2. Emotional intelligence. You proactively manage potential conflicts or emotions that may arise during the negotiation and pay close attention to nonverbal cues from the FRIT Executive to gain deeper insights into their perspective. FRIT Executive, I believe the fee is on the higher side. We have budget constraints, and we need to keep the costs in check. I understand your concern about the costs. I want to assure you that the assessments will be conducted diligently to ensure compliance with local zoning regulations. Can you share more about your budget constraints and any specific concerns you may have? I want to make sure we find a solution that works for both parties. 3. Preparation. You anticipate potential objections or counterarguments from the FRIT Executive and prepare persuasive responses in advance to effectively address their concerns. FRIT Executive, we have received lower quotes from other real estate agents for similar assessments. Can you justify your fee? I understand that you may have received lower quotes from other real estate agents. However, I want to emphasize that my expertise and experience in conducting assessments for zoning compliance are unparalleled. I have a proven track record of delivering high-quality results and ensuring strict compliance with local zoning regulations. I also provide value-added services, such as a detailed report with recommendations, which sets me apart from others in the industry. 4. Active listening. You actively listen to the FRIT Executive's concerns, ask clarifying questions, and show empathy to understand their perspective better. FRIT Executive, we are concerned about the overall cost of the project, and we need to manage expenses carefully. I hear your concerns about the overall cost of the project. As a real estate agent, I understand the importance of managing expenses. My goal is to provide you with the best value for your investment by ensuring the property's compliance with local zoning regulations and offering additional services that can optimize the property's potential. Can you tell me more about your budget considerations and any specific priorities you have for the project? 5. Assertiveness and adaptability. You maintain a professional and assertive demeanor while being adaptable and respectful in dealing with the FRIT Executives. Scenario 1. Negotiation for property zoning compliance assessment setting. A high-stakes negotiation between number 1, a real estate agent who is known for his intimidating and powerful persona, and a FRIT Executive, who is an expert in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. The negotiation is about the cost of conducting assessments for the property's zoning compliance. As the negotiation begins, number 1 takes on his intimidating and powerful persona, exuding confidence and authority. Number 1, in a commanding tone, thank you for joining me, FRIT Executive. As you know, I am the mastermind expert in the real estate industry, and I expect nothing but the best. I have assessed the property's zoning compliance and determined that my fee for conducting the assessment is $2,000 due to its complexity. FRIT Executive, maintaining a calm and composed demeanor, thank you, number 1, for your assessment. As a FRIT Executive, I am well versed in zoning law and regulations, and I have conducted my own evaluation of the property's compliance. Based on my assessment, I believe the complexity of the assessment does not warrant a fee of $2,000. I propose a fee of $750 for the assessment. Number 1, showing no signs of backing down. I understand your perspective, but as the leader of the global organization, I have extensive knowledge and experience in evaluating properties. The complexity of this assessment requires a fee of $2,000 to ensure a thorough evaluation. Assessment. As the real estate agent, number 1 could improve his negotiation approach in several ways. 1. Bargaining technique. Number 1 could consider using alternative bargaining techniques to justify the fee and potentially achieve a better outcome. For example, he could offer additional value-added services, such as a detailed report on the property's potential for future development or a consultation session to address any questions or concerns from the FRIT executive. This could help justify the higher fee and provide additional value to the other party. 2. Emotional intelligence. Number 1 could be more proactive in managing potential conflicts or emotions that may arise during the negotiation. Instead of maintaining a commanding and intimidating demeanor, he could adopt a more collaborative and empathetic approach to build rapport and establish a more constructive negotiation environment. 3. Preparation. Number 1 could anticipate potential objections or counter-arguments from the FRIT executive and prepare persuasive responses in advance. This could help address the FRIT executive's concerns and demonstrate number 1's expertise and knowledge in the subject matter. 4. Active listening. Number 1 could practice active listening by being fully present in the moment and paying close attention to verbal and non-verbal cues from the FRIT executive. This could help him better understand the FRIT executive's perspective and tailor his approach accordingly. 5. Assertiveness and adaptability. Number 1 could maintain a professional and assertive demeanor while also being adaptable and respectful in dealing with the FRIT executive. He could avoid being overly aggressive and strive to find common ground to reach a mutually beneficial outcome. Based on this feedback, number 1 could adjust his negotiation approach to improve his bargaining skills, emotional intelligence, preparation, active listening, and assertiveness in future negotiations. Scenario 2. Negotiation for property zoning compliance assessment setting. A negotiation between number 1, a real estate agent known for his intimidating and powerful persona, and a FRIT executive who is also an expert in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. The negotiation is about the cost of conducting assessments for the property's zoning compliance. As the negotiation begins, number 1 takes on a more collaborative and empathetic approach. Number 1, in a calm and composed tone. Thank you for joining me. Sure. Here's a detailed scenario for the negotiation between number 1, the real estate agent, and the FRIT executive. Scenario 1, assessment setting. A high-rise office building in the heart of the city, where number 1 has set up a meeting with the FRIT executive to negotiate the price for conducting assessments of the property's zoning compliance. As number 1, you start the negotiation by taking a confident and assertive approach, knowing that the FRIT executive is known for being an expert in sales, zoning law and regulations, and psychology. Number 1, entering the room with a commanding presence. Good morning, I'm number 1, the real estate agent referred to as the mastermind expert in the industry. I appreciate your time today, FRIT executive. Let's get straight to business. I understand that you need assessments for the property's zoning compliance. My fee for conducting such assessments ranges from $750 to $2,000. Depending on the complexity. I'll start with an offer of $1,800 for my services. As the FRIT executive, you respond with a composed and confident demeanor, showing that you are well prepared and knowledgeable about the subject matter. FRIT executive nods and maintains eye contact. Thank you, number 1, for your offer. I understand that you bring a wealth of experience to the table. However, as an expert in zoning law and regulations, I also know the value of such assessments. Based on my analysis of the market rates and complexity of the property, I believe a fair price for the assessments would be around $1,200. Number 1, pauses and evaluates the offer. I understand your perspective, FRIT executive, but considering my expertise and the high-quality services I provide, I believe my original offer of $1,800 is reasonable. I have a track record of delivering accurate and comprehensive assessments that ensure compliance with local zoning regulations, which can save you from potential legal and financial risks in the future. FRIT executive raises an eyebrow and leans back. I appreciate your confidence, number 1. However, as a sales expert, I am also skilled in negotiations, and I believe $1,200 is a fair price based on the current market rates. Furthermore, I have a deep understanding of zoning law and regulations, and I know that the complexity of the assessments is not as high as you claim. Number 1, maintains a composed demeanor. I understand your perspective, FRIT executive. However, as a mastermind expert, I take pride in my thorough and meticulous approach to assessments, which ensures accurate results and minimizes risks for my clients. I am unable to lower my offer below $1,500, which I believe is a fair price for the value I provide. FRIT executive pauses and nods. I can appreciate your attention to detail. Number 1. As a zoning law and regulations expert, I understand the importance of accurate assessments. However, my budget is limited, and I cannot go beyond $1,300 for this service. I believe this is a reasonable offer given the market rates and the complexity of the assessments. Number 1. Pauses and evaluates the offer. I understand your budget constraints, FRIT Executive. However, based on my expertise and the value I bring to the table, I am unable to go below $1,400. This is my final offer. FRIT Executive pauses and considers. All right, number 1, I respect your expertise, and I believe your offer of $1,400 is fair. We have a deal. Number 1 nods and extends a hand for a handshake. Excellent. It's a pleasure doing business with you. Scenario 1. Negotiation between number 1, real estate agent, and FRIT Executive. Number 1. In a confident and authoritative tone, thank you for joining me today, Mr. FRIT Executive. I understand that you are interested in conducting assessments of the property's zoning compliance. As the head of the global organization, I take zoning regulations very seriously and want to ensure that our transactions are fully compliant. However, I must inform you that our assessment fees start at $2,000 for complex properties and may go higher depending on the level of complexity. FRIT Executive, in a calm and composed tone, thank you for the information. Number 1. As a sales expert and zoning law and regulations expert, I understand the importance of compliance. However, based on my assessment of the property, I believe the complexity is moderate, and a fee of $1,200 would be fair and reasonable for the services needed. Number 1. In a stern tone, I appreciate your perspective, but as the mastermind expert and leader of my organization, I am responsible for ensuring that all assessments are thorough and accurate. The level of complexity requires significant expertise and resources, and therefore, our fee of $2,000 is non-negotiable. FRIT Executive, using active listening skills and acknowledging number 1's concern, I understand your commitment to providing thorough assessments. Number 1. However, as a psychology expert, I also know that building a mutually beneficial relationship is essential in business negotiations. Based on my research and experience, a fee of $1,500 is the industry standard for similar assessments in this area. Number 1. Maintaining assertiveness and providing additional justifications. While I appreciate your input, I must reiterate that our fee of $2,000 is based on the encyclopedic knowledge and expertise of our team, and the complexity of the property in question. We are unwilling to lower our fee below this amount. FRIT Executive, proposing a value-added service. I understand your position. Number 1. However, to show our commitment to building a long-term partnership, I am willing to offer additional value by including a detailed report of the assessment findings and recommendations, at no extra cost. This will provide added value to your organization and demonstrate our expertise in this field. Number 1. Evaluating the proposal and maintaining adaptability. I appreciate your proposal, and I acknowledge the added value it brings. However, considering the complexity of the property and the encyclopedic knowledge and resources required for our assessments, I am willing to meet you halfway at a fee of $1,800. This is our final offer. FRIT Executive, expressing satisfaction with the outcome. Thank you. Number 1. I believe we have reached a fair and mutually beneficial agreement at $1,800. I look forward to working together and conducting the assessments to ensure compliance with local zoning regulations. Number 1. Concluding with a professional tone, agreed, Mr. FRIT Executive. I appreciate your professionalism and negotiation skills. I am confident that our partnership will be successful. We will proceed with the assessments as agreed upon. Thank you for your time. Assessment. As the AI representing both parties, I believe the negotiation was conducted effectively, with both parties using various negotiation techniques to achieve their goals. Here is a summary of the assessment. 1. Bargaining skills. Number 1 effectively justified the fee based on the complexity of the property and the expertise of their team. FRIT Executive proposed a value-added service to justify a lower fee, showcasing good bargaining skills. 2. Emotional intelligence. Both parties remained composed and professional throughout the negotiation. Sure. Let's dive into the negotiation scenario. Scenario 1. Assessments. You, as the real estate agent referred to as number 1, are a mastermind expert and the head of a global organization. You are known for your highly intelligent and ruthless persona, willing to go to great lengths to achieve your goals. You are depicted as a cultured badass with encyclopedic knowledge in a wide variety of topics, including biology, technology, and economic events. You are also known for your mysterious and powerful persona, operating in the dark, and are an intimidating expert. On the other side of the negotiation table is the FRIT Executive, who is a sales expert, zoning law and regulations expert, and psychology expert. You will now play the roles of both parties in the negotiation. Let's begin. Role-playing as number 1. You, in a confident and assertive tone. Good day, Mr. FRIT Executive. I hope you are well. As the head of my organization, I have been conducting assessments of the property's zoning compliance. Based on our evaluations, the estimated cost for ensuring compliance with local zoning regulations ranges from $750 to $2,000, depending on the complexity of the property. Role-playing as FRIT Executive. FRIT Executive, in a composed and professional manner. Thank you for your assessment, number 1. We appreciate your expertise in this matter. However, we have conducted our own assessments and believe that the cost should be on the lower end of the range. Given that the property's zoning compliance is relatively straightforward, we are prepared to offer $800 for the assessment. Role-playing as number 1. You, pausing to assess the offer, then responding assertively. I understand your perspective, Mr. FRIT Executive. However, as an expert in this field, I have thoroughly evaluated the property's zoning compliance based on local regulations, including setbacks, allowable land use, density, height, and parking requirements. The complexity of the property requires meticulous attention to detail, and I believe the estimate I provided is fair and reasonable. Deliberate practice feedback. Good job in establishing your expertise as number 1 and confidently presenting your assessment. You could have provided more specific details about the complexities of the property that justify the higher end of the cost range. You did not explore alternative bargaining techniques or propose additional value-added services to justify the fee, as suggested in the initial recommendations. Role-playing as number 1. You, offering an alternative. Mr. FRIT Executive, in addition to the assessments, my organization can provide a detailed report outlining the compliance requirements and any potential risks or issues that may arise, along with recommendations for addressing them. This comprehensive report would provide valuable insights to ensure a smooth and compliant development process for your project. Considering the expertise and value-added services my organization can provide, I believe a fee of $1,500 would be reasonable. Role-playing as FRIT Executive. FRIT Executive, pausing to consider the proposal. That sounds reasonable, number 1. However, we were hoping to keep the cost lower. Could you consider a fee of $1,300? Deliberate practice feedback. Good job in offering an alternative and proposing value-added services to justify the fee. As suggested in the initial recommendations, you could have proactively managed potential conflicts or emotions that may arise during the negotiation, and paid closer attention to nonverbal cues or signals from the other party to gain deeper insights into their perspective. As recommended in the initial suggestions, you maintained a professional and assertive demeanor as number 1, which is commendable.